Welcome to the Caregiver Relief Podcast, where we share real stories, expert insights, and practical guidance to help caregivers feel supported, informed, and less alone. I'm Diane Carbo, your host. Today's conversation is a deeply meaningful one. We're talking about what it means to live with uncertainty. When a serious genetic illness like Huntington's disease touches your family and shapes the decisions you make about your future. My guest today is Lori Jones, an advocate, speaker, storyteller, and business leader who has personally experienced the impact of Huntington's disease in her family. Lori has dedicated years to raising awareness, supporting research, and helping others understand the emotional and ethical realities of living at risk. In this conversation, Lori shares her personal journey, what she has learned about courage and purpose, and how families can navigate caregiving while still finding meaning and connection along the way. So if you've ever faced uncertainty, supported a loved one through illness, or wondered how to live fully even when the future feels unclear, this episode is for you. This episode is sponsored by myvitalvault.net, your all-in-one life organizer for aging adults and caregivers. It's designed to help you securely store your essential legal, medical, and emergency information in one easy-to-access place. Because when a crisis hits, being prepared can make all the difference. Join our Caregiver Relief community, a warm, welcoming space where you can connect with other caregivers, ask questions, share stories, and find support from people who truly understand. Visit community.caregiverrelief.com to join now, because caregiving is one of the hardest and most meaningful things you'll ever do, and no one should have to do it alone. And if this episode speaks to you, please take a moment to like, share, or comment. Every click helps us reach more caregivers who need encouragement, resources, and hope. Lori, thanks so much for joining me today. You have an amazing story, and you've had the courage to write a book about your experience. Before we get started about talking about the disease, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you joy these days?
Happily, and thank you so much for having me. I think what brings me joy these days is having conversations like this. I never thought 20 years ago that what I was going through would be an opportunity to help other people. And so I'm a grandmother. I just became a grandmother 5 months ago.
Congratulations.
I have a day job. I lead tech teams every day across the United States. But truly, this little side passion, it gets me up every morning.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I want you to share your family story with Huntington's disease and how it first entered your life.
Yes. So I always say that we thought there was something there, but we couldn't quite put our finger on it. Our family didn't talk about Huntington's disease very much. Now, to date myself, I was born in 1970. And as some of you know, but the predictive test for HD didn't come out until 1993. So you're looking at over 20 years prior to any testing. And so it was observation, family pedigree, conversations, and fear that took place. And like I said, I heard words about it, thoughts about it. My dad called Huntington's disease the shake, and he had witnessed his aunt, his mother's sisters begin to have symptoms. And so he knew it was in our family, but it was loosely discussed as something that could happen to you when you were old and that we shouldn't worry about it now, even though I think he was worrying about it on the daily because he was seeing it starting to happen to his family. So my father had HD. We didn't have him officially diagnosed until much later in his life. He didn't want to know. He was resistant to go to the doctor. But my grandmother went ahead and did the predictive test as soon as it became available in 93. So my grandmother and her sister, one of her sisters, went and got tested in 93. And that was when I guess you could say officially Huntington's disease was in our family, was when my grandmother tested positive.
God bless your grandmother for having the
Yes.
courage and the curiosity
Yes.
and overcoming fear of the unknown.
Yeah, she was the most progressive of anyone. She got the newsletters from the Guthrie organization. She was always talking about it. I will tell you, some people in the family didn't want to hear what
Yes,
Grandma had to say. It was scary. It was
Yeah.
unknown, and she had opinions. But I commend her bravery for being so progressive at that time.
Yeah. That's amazing. What does living at risk really mean on a day-to-day emotional level?
Yeah, living at risk on a daily basis depends on how busy you are, because you can put it out of your mind
Yeah.
until you drop something, or you stumble, or you forget your word, or you have an emotion that feels too strong. And then you think, is this Huntington's disease? And so once you know your risk, you know that if your parent is diagnosed, you have a 50% risk of inheriting the illness. And there are no carriers. So as an autosomal dominant disease, regardless of gender, a biological parent sends 50% risk to each biological child. So living at risk, you're a coin flip. You might have this, you maybe won't. And it might present itself in your 30s, 40s, 50s, or 60s.
I had a young patient, a 40-year-old man in a nursing home, unable to swallow, still able to speak a little bit, but it was in the 90s and they tested his son and his son was positive for it too. So they never brought the son to visit the dad because they didn't want him to see what could happen to him. And they never told the father that the son had gotten the gene. So it was very hard for them. Now, you've spoken publicly about ethical considerations around genetic testing. What are some of the hardest decisions families face?
Yeah, it's a hotbed for sure. And
Oh,
I
absolutely.
always say everyone has to make their own personal choice, and there's no wrong answer.
Yeah.
There are so many factors to consider. And what my genetics counselor said to me was, are you certain you want to know this information? Because I can't untell you once
Yeah.
you know. And so that's one of the biggest things is if you want to open that envelope, you can't seal it again. And so you have to decide, would I rather live at risk with what some people call the tortured hope, where the possibility of being negative can help you through days of worrying if you're positive? Or do I want to know so I can make a life plan? And that really is up to each family to decide what they want to do with that information. Now, knowing where we are at in scientific research and where we are at with potential treatments and therapies, there are clinical trials you can get involved in. I'd like to say that if I was testing today, my decision to do so would have been that much easier, because I would have seen, here are some immediate things that I can do. In the 1990s, you could find out, and then what would you do? What would you do with that information to make your life better? Now, I will say you can start talking about it. You can talk about it with your family. And what we didn't do as a family was talk about it. And I think truly the communication, the awareness, and the understanding and creating that empathy for the person really early on, when potential psych symptoms may present that can damage family relationships, knowing that there's a reason for those psych symptoms could make all the difference. And so I'm all over the map on do you test, don't you test? And of course, there's the consideration of families that might want to start having a biological family, and they might want to decide whether they would go that route or not. So many decisions, but I guess it all comes back to you can't unknow once,
Yes.
and that is your decision point.
I have people that they can be tested for Alzheimer's now and they don't want to know. But the other consideration families look at is are you able to get insurance coverage in the future? That's a whole nother ballgame. That's a challenge that many face because if it's going to impact their ability to get in health insurance, they would prefer to be in denial at this point in time. And I don't know how you overcome that.
Yeah,
It's unfair because that if you do.
Yeah, and I was guided very wisely by a social worker from the HDSA, the Huntington's Disease Society of America. And She was an angel for me. Her name is Jean. She's still living today. We still speak today. And she sat with me and helped me navigate how to prepare for this. And I'll tell you, Diane, it felt a little covert. She said, do you have life insurance? Are you actively covered by health insurance? And I was by my spouse. Do all these things. Go to the clinic. We tested confidentially and with cash. And so it felt just black market. I tell you, it was.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's
And then once we found out what the results were, we could move forward. But she said, get your ducks in a row before you undertake this process. And I think part of that is still a little true today, and probably good for anyone undergoing such a monumental discovery test, whatever you're testing for. Get your ducks in a row before you enter this, because you're probably going to need some emotional time to unwind and determine your next steps. And the last thing you want to be doing is scrambling to find out if you have coverage.
Yes, exactly, 100%. And it's sad that we are determined whether we can have insurance coverage or not because we may develop a disease.
Yeah.
It's just very frustrating.
Well,
So
we're headed down the slippery road. Yes.
Yes, it is. It's a very slippery slope. So how has Huntington's disease shaped your perspective on planning for the future?
That's a great question. I would say, and when I speak to audiences, I'll say when I lived at risk, I lived in two places at the same time, if you can imagine it. One, I was in a tremendous hurry. I was in a hurry to do everything before I got sick, because in my head, I thought, well, I'm going to get sick. So I was very driven to the milestones: get married, buy a house, do the things, buy a dog, have children, in case something might happen to you. And yet I didn't commit to anything long-term, any dreams or plans that my spouse and I talked about, like maybe we'll buy a cottage, maybe we'll do this. Oh, I couldn't think about any of those things because those were too far out. And so it was a weird dichotomy. But it makes sense now that I was in a hurry and yet commitment phobic. Now, looking back, I think earlier awareness, earlier conversation, I would have been more mindful. I would have thought, here are some goals I'd like to achieve. They would have been realistic. I wouldn't have had all the spun up, all the hurry. And I would have tried to live a little more in the present instead of racing through it.
My mom died when I was 18. She was in her 40s. And I had the same kind of issues, not because I thought in my head, my mom died early, I'm going to die early. So I too did all the things just like that because it was commitment phobic and I didn't want to get attached to anything. Property, anything did not matter to me. It's just get rid of it. I'm not going to need it. And here I am at 72, soon to be 73. And I'm thinking, dang gun, I give a lot of stuff away.
Yeah. Possession, which minimalistic living is great, but that detachment, that almost disassociates what's happening to you because it would hurt too much to care. And it's not a great way to live. Yeah.
No, it is absolutely not a good way to live at all. Now, I want to talk about common misconceptions people have about Huntington's disease, and maybe even a little bit about the caregivers that are providing the care for them.
I would love to talk about that. And it comes back again to diagnosis. And so you see someone in a wheelchair, you hold the door for them, right? If you see someone staggering around, a little unkempt, maybe too loud and acting erratic, maybe overly angry, you instantly go to that person is unwell. That person is on a substance. That person has a problem and I don't want anything to do with them. And so it's hard. My dad didn't get diagnosed. And truly, when I was a small person, in your home, normal is what you live with. And so I really only noticed his early symptoms when we went out and about. And one example, we're at a ball game and he liked to sit in the top of the bleachers and he was going to fall off the bleachers. He was staggering around, holding the handle of the bleachers. And I can remember to this day in the pit of my stomach because people were staring. And I can remember thinking, something's not right. I don't know what it is, but they're looking at him and it's not kind. Those aren't kind eyes. We better watch that guy. He's going to fall. It was, why is he moving like that? So
Yeah,
early
they're
symptoms.
judging him for,
Yeah, exactly. The early symptoms, the choreotic movement or the shuffling gait can often be misunderstood as being on a substance or alcohol induced.
yes,
And so there's that. But
yes.
even earlier than a shuffling gait or maybe an uncontrolled movement are psychiatric symptoms. And so I would say, looking back on my dad's life and his battle with HD, is for a solid decade before he had movements, he had psychiatric symptoms. In him, they exhibited as unpredicted rage, outbursts, very manic talking, lots of big speeches that went on, and just some really erratic behavior. And I don't know what you do with that unless people know there's a reason. And so I go back to the awareness and the understanding, and even a caretaker who maybe doesn't know they're a caretaker yet sees this person in the family as someone, boy, they sure don't want to be around. The earlier you can detect and understand why unexpected behavior is happening in your relationship, the earlier the empathy can start. And I'm not going to say it all ends with roses and candy. It's hard. But knowing the why makes all the difference.
There are several conditions of different types of dementia, like Parkinson's, where some untoward behaviors, confusing behaviors start before a diagnosis, which many people get divorced, many people separate because they don't get the diagnosis and they're thinking this person is changing, they're awful, they're terrible, and it's not really that at all. It's just a condition. And I've had so many people tell me, the children of these kids, the adult children tell me that their parents separated and whichever one was ill, the other one felt guilty because they left because they didn't understand what was happening. And that's hard. Yeah.
It is. It's hard, especially if the person whose behavior is changing thinks they're fine.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's always.
No desire to seek medical attention. Just impossible to live with. And yet, so I've gone to HD support groups and spoken with caregivers, and they say, what do you do? What do you do with your unwilling person? The person who is unwilling to get help, but there must be help. And I have commented that sometimes, almost always, it takes an event. It takes an event to get that person care. And so perhaps we find the safest event that could happen. And with my family, we literally orchestrated the event. And my mother was my dad's caregiver, but he didn't want to be cared for. He was obstinate and difficult, and he wasn't taking meds, and it was very difficult. And we had to orchestrate her exiting the home and the social services coming in and doing a welfare check before we could eventually move the cogs of the system to get help. And it was difficult and heartbreaking. And yet I don't know at that point that there would have been another way.
I tell people there are a lot of uncooperative seniors out there, or private seniors out there, that don't want their families to know anything. And I just tell the adult children come to me and say, what am I going to do? What should I do? And I just say, you're going to have to function in a crisis mode, because until something happens, as you say, an event, that they fall, they injure, they need to be admitted to the hospital for something, you can't intervene. And because they're still deemed competent by our society, you can't do anything. You can't force anybody to do anything they don't want. So it is a very challenging situation. And God bless your family for creating an event.
It wasn't great, but it needed to be done.
Yeah, you know what? And bless your mom. That took courage for her to leave, even for a short period of time. I'm sure in the feelings of guilt and shame that she couldn't handle it must have been overwhelming for her, I'm sure.
Yeah, the whole family. And the hard part was he didn't understand. And he thought we were leaving him. And I eventually became his guardian. And so most of our talks started with, are you my guardian? And yes, I am your guardian. And you needed care. And we just kept reinforcing you needed care. We are not nurses, and you needed a nurse. You needed care. And the more we would say it, I think it started to sink in.
Yeah.
just to lead with those facts.
Denial is one of the strongest coping mechanisms, and it's one of the hardest to overcome in people. I see it all the time, and it takes patience and time.
Yeah.
And like you said, an event to maybe change the situation. Now, I want to ask you, how in the world did you find the strength to move into advocacy and education around HD? Oh my God, that's a challenge in itself.
I think it happened of its own accord. I don't know that I made a conscious decision. It just stuck me in. My husband and I were co-guardians for my father for the last decade of his life. And so he cycled through 9 adult care homes during 10 years. And that social worker never gave up on me. I called her so many times and said, we need a new place. This place isn't working. We need a new place. And so after that roller coaster, and he passed away in 2013, I had been writing about it, and I've written as long as I can remember. Words are just how I process.
Yeah.
And so I had been writing a lot of memories of my dad and processing how life was with him and how his disease progressed and trying to make sense of it all. And after he passed away, I spent the next decade just unpacking and figuring out who I was next and writing about this. And as these pieces started to come together, there were little chapters, little vignettes. I had taken a nonfiction writing class. And after it was over, I had found so much just healing in putting a lot of those chapters into the homework assignments. So I get done with the course, and I had taken the course simply for an outlet, something to do. And my husband said, I think it's about time you put this together and put it out there. I think this is something that needs to go out there. Oh my goodness, they're going to put that out there. Put it where? So I went to the professor of the course and said, hey, I'm thinking about making this into something, and I could use an editor. Do you have a suggestion? And she replied back to me and said, well, I edit, and I would love to edit. So here we are. And I said to her, the only people who have ever read what I have written like me. So I don't know if it's unbiased. She said, we're not friends. So the joke, we're not friends. And we led every editing session with, she'd say, we're not friends. And this is good. And you need to keep writing. So that was a joke. When I sent her a copy and it was finished, I said, we're not friends. Thanks for editing this book. So
it takes courage to put things on paper.
We put it on paper. And what she helped me with is I said, my charge to you is I do not want one word of this to be disrespectful. And yet it must be authentic. And that is going to involve some dark chapters because it can't be fluffy. This has to be what really happened. And so she, all through that, the charge of we're not friends, is it really good? And are you balancing authenticity with dignity? And I tell you, she helped me all the way through that process. So when we were done, she says, you've got a book. It's time. It needs to go out. And wow, when you submit it, that's super scary because now people they're going to read your stuff, right? You're standing out there in your skivvies. And then it just started happening. I started to go to a few events. We had volunteered, and for years we had volunteered in the HD community. After my father passed away, I felt like I needed a minute. And so it was about 2 years where I didn't do anything. I didn't participate. And so I started dipping my toe back into that. And some speaking engagements started, and people said, yeah, we'd love to have you come and talk. So I go to lifelong learners, I go to the ADRC, and I go to the HD support groups. And so slowly just starting to get back into it. But what I found most, I don't know, satisfying is the word, but I was recently at an HD education day, and a gentleman stopped to my table. And let me tell you, I hate standing at a table. It's so awkward. So here I'm standing at the table with the books. And the gentleman came up and he said, thank you for putting into words what happened in my family. He said, I actually, when I read your book, felt like you had been looking in our window. And not that I would have ever wanted another person to have experienced the same thing. We were instantly connected. Yes. And he was validated and I was validated. And it came around to, you don't have to do this alone. And it might be difficult, but the shared struggle is what's going to get you through. So at that point, I said, I need to keep coming back to all of these. As awkwardly as it is to stand at the table, I need to go and participate in that struggle with other people. So I don't know if I answered your question. It happened, I think, outside of my own will. And here we are.
I love that because I do what I do to help others too, because I want them to know they're not alone. So And many people become very selfish of their time. I know I had to take time off when I lost my oldest son. So I understand you just, after so much energy and attention to caregiving for such a long period of time, sometimes you just need to step off the world and get into the normal world again and just learn to breathe and take care of yourself and be just you.
Yes. Who even am I outside of that role that was consuming with the phone
Yeah.
ringing? We weren't in direct active care because he was in a care home. But
Yes.
boy, I tell you, every time that phone rang, and it was a landline, every time that landline rang, my heart would drop. What has happened now?
Yeah.
What are we headed into? And that constant adrenaline it's something. It takes a toll on you after a while.
And you also had to advocate for him always. That never goes away. And that's what I tell caregivers when their family member does go into an alternative setting like assisted living or nursing home. You still have to advocate. So you need to be there on a regular basis, check out what's going on, make the DON, the director of nursing, and the administrator or whoever your best friend, because let them know that you're there and you want the best possible care. But as you're here, you're talking about 10 settings that your father had to move to, 10 different. And when you have situations with behaviors, we don't have a system that handles behaviors well anywhere. And it's so hard for families to realize, and then they do struggle. And is the next place going to be better? Or you pray that, oh, dad will behave himself so that he can stay and he doesn't have to move to a different place, because he's also being impacted by a new everything, new people, new environment. It's really challenging. But that I see is a failure on our healthcare system's part. And it's one of the biggest failures, because the other thing is they want to just sedate everybody because of those untoward behaviors. And nobody wants to see their family members sedated and not interactive. And it hurries along death. It just is so unpleasant. And it's hard because that's what they call it, chemical restraints, and they're not supposed to do that. When it's behaviors, they don't think twice about it. They just want to zonk them. And it's not a good thing.
Very difficult. No, it's not good. And then you also have the roommates. So, at any given time, my dad would have multiple different roommates. And of course, they all had some sort of neurological challenge.
Yes.
And so the loudness, it was loud. And that was, I'm learning, very affecting on him. And it would cause chaos in his brain. And he just couldn't take the loud.
Yeah.
So once we started to learn what the triggers were, then we could educate and help the staff. And plus understanding and saying, hey, I know you've got really hard jobs. I know you're managing 8 individuals in this home with very unique issues. But the biggest things for my dad was he needs flexibility. This rigorous schedule is not working. He needs to be able to get up when he wants and eat when he wants. He's a grown man. Can we do a flexible schedule was always what I would ask for. And could we try to balance the noise, the temperature, and then give him a minute. Let's slow the pace down. If your brain is degenerating, if the brain cells are being stolen from you, you are not going to process quickly. And so if we could slow it down, quiet it down, and relax the schedule, we would have more success. And the last place we found for him did all 3 of those in spades. And I couldn't say enough about how creative they got.
I'm impressed that you found a place, because I find that most facilities are inflexible, and the people that provide the care are expected to get things done, or administration's looking at them. You didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. So they're in a hurry to hurry up and get things done. So you were very blessed to find a home where they were willing to work with you and him to meet his.
We got pretty creative. I am amazed that it worked out. And I actually I was a certified nursing assistant, and I remember that rush. I needed to put 30 humans in 30 beds in 45 minutes. That's what needed to happen.
You had to be superhuman. I know. A superwoman coming and bathing and getting them to bed and brushing their teeth and going on to the next one. And oh, it's hard. It's really hard.
It is very difficult. So I tried to balance the understanding for what I knew the caregivers were going through, along with, hey, this is a human who needs dignity and flexibility. And they got pretty creative. It wasn't always perfect. Trust me. There were probably days we both wanted to end our relationship. They got pretty creative.
Yeah. So what have you learned about yourself, your resilience through your family's journey?
Oh, for a long time, I felt inadequate in every area. I felt that I had failed miserably. I also battled survivor's guilt for a long time. Why some family members get this, why others don't. It doesn't feel fair. And then imposter syndrome, if you want to add another syndrome, to why would I come back to the HD community? I didn't feel like I even should have a seat at that table, because here are the real heroes, are the ones that are actually battling the illness. And I think I credit my spouse for kind of giving me a reality check. And he said, I'll never forget, we were trying to plan the fundraiser in our local community, which we started and is still running today. I was having second guessing. Should I be running this? Should I be starting this? Should I be even involved in any of this? And he said to me, I'll never forget, if the gene negative people do not help the gene positive people, then who will?
Exactly.
Okay, you got a point there. Very candid, very frank, very practical, that man. And so then, get over yourself and get in and help. And since then, I've had conversations with gene positive people who have predictive tested. They're not symptomatic yet, but they know it's coming. And one gentleman in particular, he had said to me, because I said to him, I struggle still with survivor's guilt. Like, why should I be here? Why should we be having this conversation? You're positive, I'm negative. And he said, I'm just going to say to you, thanks for not dipping out. Thanks for not saying, this isn't affecting me, I'm moving on with my life, because you could have. And so we just really arrived at a really nice partnership where he can speak to the symptoms that are going to be coming, and I can be there to help when the positive is no longer able to. There are gene positive people out in the world today doing superhuman things, writing books, doing podcasts. I'm in amazement of them. But what I have learned about myself is get over yourself and don't stop doing what you're doing because it matters. Yes. So the book is spared, and people say, oh, spoiler alert, like it's not some people didn't realize it, but no, I am gene negative, but it's almost spared with a question mark, because every family member of Huntington's is in some way affected. You're either living at risk, you either are gene positive, you may be gene negative, living with survivor's guilt or processing broken family relationships, or you're caregiving. So you're in it in some way, and every aspect of that needs attention. And so what I've learned about myself is I have a place, I have a lane, and I'm going to drive in that as long as it's needed and as long as I can add value. For a long time, I ran away. I ran away from all of this. And when I talk about it, I was pretending it wasn't happening to our family, but you can't really run away from genetic risk. It will find you.
Yes.
So I have learned I have a little more strength in me than I thought I did 20 years ago.
One of the common threads through my podcast I'm realizing are all people that cared for somebody with a condition. They identified an obstacle, a challenge, or a problem, and they provided a solution for it. And I think that is amazing. We're in a culture where we can share information that helps others. And in a society where everybody's hurry, everything's online, technical, and they don't have conversations anymore, you're a shining light that helps people in their darkest hours know that not only are they not alone, but they can get through this and survive.
Absolutely. I call them isolating illnesses. I think our family hunkered down. We hunkered down. We didn't talk about it. We didn't get help. And there were so many consequences of that. And if you look at how you can break through that isolation, how you can reach out a hand and say, there's something not right in my house. And if I can help one family reach out and get that connection that they need, then it's totally worth it.
Absolutely. That's the way I feel. So you've written and spoken about purposeful living. How do you define purpose when life feels so uncertain at times?
Yeah. Oh, purpose for me is leaving things better than when I got here. I really think what I love is you cannot control your genetic risk. Not yet. Science is working on it, but you cannot. I couldn't control whether I was going to inherit that disease or not, but there are things I can control. And I can control what I pass down to my children and my coworkers and my family and my friends and to this world. And so you have a generational impact and you do get to choose some of it. So I think it's easy to just say, well, it's a 50-50. I can't do anything about it. I'm just going to live my life. And there's the other look that says it's 50-50. And yet I have all of this other stuff that I can do and contribute and pass on and create peace, empathy, healthy relationships moving forward. So to me, that's the purpose, is take what you can control versus focusing on the things you can't. And what can I do to incrementally make that better?
Great advice. Now, what gives you hope when you think about the future for families affected by HD?
Yeah, there is a lot going on right now. And if you look in the news, probably more than anyone would be like, what's Huntington's disease? Now, if you look at the news, you see the FDA conversations that are taking place and Unicure tests that are coming out, the clinical trials that have come out. So I feel we're on the edge. And in scientific research, that's years and years, of course. But I feel we are on the edge of some real treatment that is actually going to stick. I am not a scientist, nor do I play one on TV. So I would massacre if I tried to explain to you the science that is taking place. But in the community that I'm in, and if you look at HD Buzz or you look at Help for HD International's website or HDSA, you can read about these trials that are coming to fruition. So I do feel we're on our way to a gene therapy. There will still be generations and generations of people affected by this illness. But never before has there been as much unity amongst the organizations and the scientific community as there is right now. And that's encouraging. I think that's very encouraging.
Yes. I think AI is going to really change the way we're going to see cures of diseases or treatments that delay or lessen the side effects of a condition. It's just going to be amazing. And I think it's going to help us as humans in so many different conditions in so many ways. So I want to talk to you about your book. You shared a little bit about writing it. Tell us why the title. You gave it up a little bit earlier, but
yeah, absolutely. So Spared had always been what had come to me, as if I was ever going to put all of this together into something, it would be Spared. But it was mildly ironic in the sense that I was spared, I was gene negative, and yet, what did that mean? And what did that mean for my dad? And so the book is memoir, but it's also very much biography because he was larger than life. He was a huge impact on our family and on me as a person. And the subtitle is interesting. So the editor said you need a good subtitle that's very clear and explains what the book is about. And then we laughed because she said, you've got hot competition on the title Spare because Prince Harry has just released his book, to which I laughed hysterically and laughed out loud. Like me and Prince Harry were out there competing for audiences, right? And so here's the funny part. If you look us up on Audible, we're right next to each other on the Audible search results.
You're with royalty. Oh my goodness.
With royalty, right? It cracks me up. But my subtitle, A Memoir of Risk and Resolve, speaks to the fact that I lived at risk for half of my life, right? I lived at risk for this disease and what that does to a person. So the book is almost more about living at risk and making the decision. Do you test? Do you not? How do you navigate this? And the resolve is what it takes to do that. So that's the title of the book.
Now, if listeners could take one message from your story, what would you want it to be?
Yeah. The one message I would say is you do not have to do this alone. Whatever isolating situation you have found yourself in, and I guarantee you everyone has something they're probably not talking about. My advice would be talk about it now, talk about it sooner. If you feel you cannot talk about it with the person who might be in your home, find someone else to talk about it with. Start talking about it. We weren't talking about any of this when I was a kid. We're talking about it now. And that would have made all the difference. Do not have to do it alone.
Lori, this has been an amazing podcast. You've shared so much of your experience. How do my listeners find you?
Absolutely. I have a website, lorijoneswright.com. You can find me there. You can find the book in all the places. It's out for online purchase. You can listen to it on Audible. I think there are some libraries where you can get it for free. But if you go to the website too, there's a contact me that you can use. And I'm happy to give away Audible copies if people like to listen. So they can contact me out there. I also do speaking events, and I'm happy to join any support group. I say I'm a cheap date. You invite me, I'll probably say yes. So I'm located in central Wisconsin or northeast area of the state, but with the internet and all the virtual things, I have spoken across the world on podcasts, and I can do virtual support groups across the United States. I'm happy to do it. They can reach out there, Lori Jones Wright.
And Lori, we create Caregiver Relief, a permanent page on my site, which will have your contact information, how to get your book and stuff as well. So I want future visitors to the site to be able to find all the amazing people I interview. So thank you for your time, and I wish you much success in sharing your story with others.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. This has been a pleasure, Diane. Thank you.
Thank you. To my family caregivers out there, you are the most important part of the caregiving equation. Without you, it all falls apart. So please learn to be gentle with yourself, practice self-care every day because you are worth it.